Oh, I have it. Hello. Welcome to Other Perspectives. I'm Nancy Kaplan. Tonight we will discuss the toxic plume that is flowing under a large area of northwestern Ann Arbor and Scio Township. I am pleased to have with me two experts on the dioxane plume. Roger Rayle has been following this issue for decades. He is a co-founder of Scio Residents for Safe Water. Michael Gebhard is a hydrogeologist and environmental analyst with the Washtenaw County Environmental Health Division, Department of Public Health. One of the nation's largest groundwater cleanups is right here in Ann Arbor and Scio Township. The contamination of our groundwater by dioxane, a probable carcinogen, dates from mid-1960s to mid-1980s. Gelman Sciences use the solvent 1,4-dioxane in the manufacture of medical filters. Gelman's methods of disposal of the dioxane allow the solvent to seep deep into the groundwater. Gelman Sciences, located on South Wagner Road, was purchased in 1997 by the international Pall Corporation. Wow, that was just a brief intro for people. And Roger, give us more than a brief intro. Tell us something about the size and how it's grown, and also maybe to show us the site. You have some wonderful visuals that you can show us.
Yeah, let's go to the visuals, because
Yes.
that's the best way to give a quick overview of
Okay.
the site. So here in a mashup on Google Earth, a mashup is just a way of combining a whole bunch of visual information in one place. This is a mashup I've done that shows the dioxane plumes and some of the various features of the site. Probably best if I go to some to another visual here that shows the site itself. Here we have the same view, but showing the water bodies. We've got Barton Pond, which is part of the Huron River. We've got Honey Creek, which empties into the Huron River right here, and some of the other lakes around. This is just, the left side here is Scio Township, and the brown area that I've highlighted here is the city of Ann Arbor. And you will notice that there are some township islands in the city of Ann Arbor. These are still properties that are in the township. Some of these are actually still using the water here and here.
Why don't you tell us maybe something about the beginnings of this? Can you show us the site and maybe refer to the lagoons? I mean, how did it happen?
Right. Here's the Paul Gelman property.
Right.
This is on Wagner Road near Liberty. I will go to another visual here that shows the history of the site. This is actually a PowerPoint that's downloadable from one of our srsw.org websites. And I'll quickly go through this so it'll give people an idea of what's going on, what happened in the past. This is one that's prepared back in, I think, 2006. So Gelman moved, started in Chelsea and moved here and became Gelman Sciences around 1984, 1983, I think it was. And again, they're there on Wagner Road and Liberty. And this is a close-up of the site. I'm going to go through quickly the year by year of the various things that happened.
Maybe, yeah, because we really want to see, like, from you first, what are the first pictures of the plume developing? When do you have the first?
Well, the plume developed later. This was all happened when they first started using dioxane. Here's the various features of the site.
Right.
You got a marsh area, you get tributary, you get Becknell Creek,
Right.
the wetland, you get Third Sister Lake. Gelman moved here in '63, and they started using different practices to dispose of their.
Right.
You hear a thing called a burn pit. They built a treatment pond. They tried to biodegrade their waste. And they started using dioxane in 1966, and they tried to biodegrade it in one and then a second water treatment pond. The second treatment pond, part of the time, it overflowed into the marsh area,
Right.
contaminated the marsh area.
Want to move a little
And then
further forward. Yeah.
They had pond 3 and then a spray irrigation field, and they used a deep well, and then the dioxin was discovered in 1986, so they quit using that. And their first attempt at removing dioxin was to take it out of a redskin property well.
Well,
and
before
put it
we
into
get
the
to
deep well.
that, just want people to have an idea of where it is, and to see if you can. You have one slide that's wonderful that shows how big the area is and how small it was back when you started monitoring this, and then how big it is now.
Yes. So getting back to this that we started on here, this
There we
is
go.
this is a depiction of the plume in 1992 at what would be near the current cleanup standards, and this is what it is today. So we went from this to this
Currently.
in 18 years of cleanup.
Right, very good. That's really what I wanted people to kind of see. And so,
So
thank
do we need
you.
to come back to discuss?
We might, yeah, we need to come back and discuss it. So, Mike, tell us about remediation, about the cleanup. You know, when did it begin? Generally, how is it done? How do you get rid of it? In the big picture, how do you get rid of it? And who's overseeing it? Who's monitoring this?
Well, the Gelman site, as Roger displayed, had begun some of the various remediation in the late 80s. To remediate the 1,4-dioxane, you have to extract the groundwater and treat it at the ground surface, basically, at a treatment facility. And they do that with the UV hydrogen peroxide in the past, and type of a treatment system that breaks down the 1,4-dioxane, and then they discharge that to the lagoons as a storage process, and then that ultimately gets discharged through a permit through a tributary of Honey Creek. Since then, they've gone to a ozone and hydrogen peroxide type of a treatment system, but for this particular compound, they have to extract it out of the ground, the groundwater that is, and treat it at the surface. They don't have what's called an in situ treatment option available for it, so they have to extract it out. Those activities are overseen by the Department of Environmental Quality in Jackson, Michigan, who are the project managers of this site for the regulatory aspects of it. Washtenaw County oversees the wells and drinking water wells that may or may not be affected by it, but the DEQ is ultimately the regulatory agency that addresses the compliance.
The Department of, so are there many wells? Are we talking about many wells? Give us an idea. Are we talking about
as far
50
as
or,
monitoring wells?
Well, there are two kinds of wells, and there's the monitoring wells, and then there are the wells for extraction.
Correct.
Yes?
They're up to about 130 monitoring wells, and those wells can actually be clusters of wells, so each individual location can have up to 2 or 3 monitoring points at that location. So technically you might have, you know, upwards of 200 to 300 wells that monitor this, and then they have, they're on, I think, number 21 or 22 as far as extraction wells that they have, where they draw the water out and pipe that to a treatment facility.
And how many treatment facilities are there?
Currently there's one main treatment facility at the Wagner Road that handles the bulk of the water, and there's also what's termed a mobile treatment facility at the northeast corner of Wagner Road and Dexter Ann Arbor, that they may be taking out of service and piping that water back to the main treatment facility. So they may be going back to a single treatment process.
Okay, all right. So the remediation process has been contentious and litigious. So the original consent judgment that we were referring to, the 1992, was with Gelman in October of '92. And the key objectives, as I understand it, at that time were to prevent migration of the 1,4-dioxane and to reduce contamination below drinking water criterion. Okay. Now, Mike, there are, before Roger shows us the depths of the layers, explain to us the different levels of contamination, because there are several different levels that we're going to see in Roger's visual. Can you tell us about them?
Sure. Currently, they have a number of standards that they're looking that they clean up to. The primary one is the residential drinking water standard, and that's an 85 parts per billion of 1,4-dioxane that has to, they get down to that level, it's considered acceptable to the DEQ. They also have what's called a groundwater surface water interface standard. That is when that groundwater is, they're allowed to let it migrate into the prohibition zone. It can, what's called vent into the Huron River. Essentially, the groundwater discharges to the river, and they're allowed to let that go at 2,800 parts per billion. With the new amendments, it could get so that everything becomes the 2,800 number and not the 85. The EPA and others are looking at even lowering the number that they deal with, which are much more stringent than what Michigan's standards for cleanup are.
Okay, all right. So Roger, would you show us a visual that shows the different depths and where they are? Do you have?
Well, I have one that shows what it was like, how the original contamination happened.
Do you
have to go back to the slide.
Do you have anything that shows us how it is now? You kind of extruded it.
Oh, you're talking about the
toxic, yes.
How much concentration?
Yes, the concentration. Yes, yes,
yeah.
yes. So that people can see this. And I thought, while you're getting that, I thought that there had been that there had been 34 parts per billion of drinking water. Is that not so?
No, it is. The 34 parts per billion comes from the cleanup standards when it's a surface water body like Barton Pond that is the source of drinking water for Ann Arbor. When their contamination plume is in proximity of that surface water body that is a drinking water source. When it's a well, it's only 85 parts per billion, but if it's that surface water body in proximity to a drinking water source, then it's a 34 or 35 parts per billion number that they have to clean up to. And where it's deemed going at the moment or predicted to go, the company and the DEQ don't believe it's going to get to Barton Pond, but if it were to in the future through whatever mechanism, they would have a 34 part per billion number to clean up to.
Okay, very good. Roger, do you want to show us?
Yes, let's go back to the visual here. This is where we left off.
Yes, please, go back to the visual.
So this is where the plume is now, bounded here by the orange.
Yes.
And this is, again, at the 85 parts per billion standard. But of course, this flat map really doesn't show you the magnitude of the problem. If we go to
areas that have been added as gross, yes.
If we extrude those areas up, see these are different, these are higher concentrations and these are lower concentrations, but if we extrude those up, then you get a real picture of the mass of dioxane we're talking about here. So this is a lot of dioxane to just let go. And that portion that I just got rid of here, this is the E plume, this is the deeper plume that's making its way through the city. This is the portion that's coming from the core to the evergreen area, that's the area of current controversy.
Right.
And maybe, Mike, you want to talk about these prohibition zones while we have this visual up?